Chris, are you ready? Okay. Whenever you're ready. Хочется вы поделитесь? Давайте.
Google Docs сейчас не открыт, если бросишь.
А guys, Борис.
Если сбросишь в Telegram.
Good evening, everyone. This is That Crypto at that channel, and today we are talking about fundraising on the blockchain, and we have a guest speaker, Avet.
Avet is here. Hey everybody.
Let's begin. So, guys, if you have questions, take the mic so that everyone can hear. We're streaming live right now. We have pizza. Help yourself. Coke. And
live stream, yeah.
So first of all, I was looking about fundraising on the blockchain, but then I kind of asked the question, what is fundraising in general? And according to Wikipedia, this is also known as development or advancement. Fundraising is the process of seeking and gathering voluntary financial contribution by engaging individuals, businesses, charitable foundations, government agencies,
Everything.
and so on. So usually fundraising is typically it's referred to the non-for-profit organizations, but sometimes it's also is referred to commercial companies.
As a form of crowdfunding, or we can refer to something else as well?
Well, actually, the correct term for this would be capital funding. When we talk about companies. So in traditional capital funding means that the money is given to businesses by lenders and equity holders to cover the cost of operations. There are two types of capital funding. It's debt, when the company issues bonds, and equity, when the company issues stocks and the investors, they own a part of the company. So basically, when investors buy bonds, they get a return on investment in terms of the interest on the debt that the company is using. When the investors buy in equity, they basically receive dividends as return on their investments, and also stock appreciation.
I see. And it's probably a bit offside, but usually business starts from friends and family funding, so-called triple F, right? And
yeah.
Speaking of that, it's kind of, if it's my friend, probably my friend won't take any signing paper from me. He'll just, yeah, sure, grab the money, and yeah, give me back when you are ready. And now we are touching something like cryptocurrency space?
Well, even if it's friend and family, like there's two types of funding. So they can have equity in your company, or they can just borrow you the money. So you also can borrow the money from banks. It's similar to bonds, but I'm talking about the capital markets here.
Yeah.
So the cons of traditional capital funding, if you are about to go on IPO, initial public offering. So according to PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers consulting agency, I got this numbers from them, from their research. So first of all, it takes 12 to 18 months to prepare all the documents for the initial public offering, which may cost close to $4 million. On average, it varies from like 1 million to
More.
but usually it's no less than $1 million. And underwriters, they take the fee in between 4 and 7% of all proceeds from the IPO. It also requires $1 to $2 million annually to be compliant with all the regulations as a public company. And the IPOs are only limited to accredited investors, which usually must have more than $200,000 annual income and over like $1 million of assets. So it's not very democratic. That's the idea.
You need money to make money.
So I also wanted to mention the crowdfunding, which is kind of a little bit different model. It's more democratic. It's relatively new thing. The first crowdfunding campaign happened online in 1997 when the fans actually helped the British rock band Marillion to raise $60,000 for their US tour. That's more or less the first noticeable example of the crowdfunding online. So the crowdfunding means it's a type of funding of a project or a venture by raising small amounts of money from a large number of people. There are two types of crowdfunding. Reward crowdfunding, which means it's basically a pre-sale of goods or services that will be delivered in the future. That's what usually happens when you try to go on Kickstarter and you like pay for something and hopefully you get the product delivered sometime in the future, in a year or so. Or there is also an equity crowdfunding when you get the share of the company that you are investing in. So the major platforms right now is Kickstarter, Indiegogo, GoFundMe, and a bunch of others. So you guys, if you have questions, just raise your hand.
Just grab the mic, yeah.
So now let's talk about the fundraising on the blockchain. So basically, ICO is a type of crowdfunding. That's a segue from the traditional capital funding to the ICOs. But ICOs use the cryptocurrency as a funding vehicle. So usually it's the newly minted token that the company creates that's seeking funds is exchanged for typically Ether or Bitcoin. There can be other cryptocurrencies, but something that's already widely used in the crypto space. Or sometimes the fiat currencies can be also accepted. So ICOs, well, usually how it happens, if you go completely decentralized way, and how it was happening in 2017 and 18, basically you come up with a project with an idea, then you write a white paper, which is 5 to like 70 pages, depending on your abilities. Then you create a website, upload your white paper, build a smart contract on Ethereum. That's the major platform for ICOs. Probably 95% of all ICOs were conducted on Ethereum, and you start your marketing, which might involve a bounty campaign. That's an interesting actually way of marketing for ICOs, because you pay for the marketing efforts. You pay with your token that you just created. So
Which is
basically, as you don't pay money up front, and only if the project is worth something, then those guys that participate in the bounty hunters, they would get something significant out of it. So the properties of the ICOs is there is minimum to no regulations whatsoever. Some countries, well, especially in the last couple of years, they try to implement regulations. They try to ban ICOs, like China, for example, and a few others. But there are jurisdictions where there are no regulations whatsoever, and because it's online, you don't really need to have a physical location for that thing. However, we know, well, like a lot of the ICO, they try to prevent U.S. citizens in participating into the ICO, because we know the legal system of the United States like spreads all over the world. So it's like the only country that the laws of which they extend all over the globe. So usually people try not to have U.S. citizens and as investors in the ICO. No restriction on.
I don't know if this thing's working. Is it working?
Can you pull it up?
Oh, now it's working. Good. Yeah, I have a little bit of experience with that, because a friend of mine, Ian Palm, is one of the 3 partners of Gowlings, which has 1,500 lawyers, Canada's biggest law firm. Well, one day I went in there in the afternoon, and I called him up because we sometimes chat, and he I said, I want to be the first legal ICO. He said, no, I'm doing 5. Well, when we got into the office, he actually said he's not doing 5, he's redoing 5. These ICOs raise maybe 200 million in just a week, and they go offshore to Gibraltar, where the laws are not the same, or to Switzerland. Well, guess what? 500 related companies over a period of about 5 months, the guys came back from there. They got visits from the RCMP. The Ontario Securities Commission uses the RCMP. They were scared, and they probably ended up having to pay Gowlings maybe as much as, $2 million to repair it, because the repair job, like you said, doing a proper IPO may cost $1 million. So in this case, to repair something that's bad and prevent going to jail, it might cost them $3 or $4 million. Legal fees, redoing everything, resetting everything. So that is why you don't see any more action on ICOs unless it is just crowdfunding.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. But in 2017, people actually didn't know, and the regulators didn't know what exactly it was. So there was no regulation about the ICOs, and what those tokens were, no one really knew. So right now there are 3 types of tokens, more or less. First is currency, which is not regulated by securities commissions. The second one is the utility token, is a token that you need to pay in order for you to use the platform itself. Like MakerDAO, for example. And actually, Ether itself is the utility token, and Ethereum actually had an ICO in 2014, and they raised $18 million in Bitcoin by giving Ether to the investors. And then also security tokens when I guess you own a part of the company. So the definitions of those tokens vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, from country to country, but these are the 3 major types. And right now there's the Kik company, the Canadian company with the Messenger. It's quite popular. And they did the ICO and they launched their cryptocurrency, KIN, K-I-N. Well, they raised quite a bit of money. And right now they're being sued by SEC because SEC says it's a security, but Kik, the company, says no, it's just a currency. We didn't promise anything. We didn't promise any returns. We didn't promise any shares of the company. I don't know what's the outcome will be. Maybe they already decided something. I didn't follow up recently. So yeah, so that's that phenomenon that we saw in 2017 and 18, when everyone had a chance to participate in different projects, and basically, I guess people were mostly gambling, and they were driven by greed. When we saw that the price of token can go up like 100x or 1,000x sometimes within a few weeks. Some people made lots of money. Some people, actually, most people, they lost the money because no one was checking the background of the companies. Most of the ICOs, they were scams. I don't know, by some estimations, that's up to 95% of all the projects were outright scams. They didn't plan to do any projects. And the rest of the 5%, they kind of go through the same startup process. There are risks. Some of them just don't make it. And so usually that's the interesting part. When you participate in an ICO, you don't really have any rights. So those tokens, they don't give you, most of the time. Sometimes they can, but most of the times you don't have voting rights, you don't have shares in the company. Well, that's from the entrepreneurs, like from the guys who are running the project. That's a good and interesting way of funding, because you don't lose the control of your company at all. But from the investor's point of view, you are not protected by anything. As I mentioned, there are utility tokens that are required if you want to use the projects, usually platforms. The projects are called the platforms, just like Ethereum or Waves, or there are a bunch of others. And these ICOs can be decentralized, completely decentralized. When there is a smart contract, you send your Ether to the smart contract, and then if certain terms, usually the soft cap or the hard cap or the time when the certain terms they reached, then the new tokens will be issued and sent back to you, to your wallet, from which you send the Ether to the smart contract. And that's decentralized and completely trustless. Or sometimes, a lot of times, it can be centralized, so you send your funds, can be Ether, can be Bitcoin, can be even US dollars, to a particular wallet or a bank account or anything like that, and then in a centralized way, the new tokens will be distributed and you may get it. So we had both ways. And some numbers that we see, like the end of 2017 and then the beginning of 2018 was the peak of the ICOs. And for example, in January, the peak of the bull market, the crypto bull market. So the companies raised $1.5 billion in 1 month only. But then we see the trend is going down, and we barely see any ICOs right now. Though they still exist.
You might see like 62 starting from
This year?
Yeah, 62 ICOs, and currently the projects behind all those ICOs are very much more mature than it used to be 2 years ago. Meantime, yes, everything gets mature, yet pretty far from really stable stuff that you just invest and you get money. And should it be like that even?
But also, people actually get educated. So
Yeah.
they get burned, they know there's lots of scams, no one is controlling those guys, who they are, no one knows, and they kind of getting more and more cautious, I'd say.
Like, what it says? It says, for example, 5,663 published ICOs. We are talking about just one platform, because something else we should mention, that ICOs is not like one centralized platform that everybody touch, that's all. No, there are multiple of them. Just number for you, 5,000. And 3,500 failed in just one platform. So is it huge number? For a so young market that ICOs, crypto, and everything, probably not.
5,000 projects in?
5,000 projects, 3.5 failed, but the rest succeed. So yes, if you think about, it's pretty high number of failure. Though young market is young. Everything, infrastructure, everything is so young, it's just years. And succeed of 30%, not too bad. Not
So,
too bad.
so basically, the ICOs started in 2017, more or less, and 17, 18, 19. Well, let's say 3 years. In total, about 5,000 projects, and you say this year is only 60.
64.
So yeah.
To be like extremely precise, we have 90 ICOs, and from that 90 ICOs, let me get the proper number here, 54. Now, it's interesting. There were 90 ICOs, like in July 2019, and they have 246 ICOs, and 90 of them didn't raise money. So they stay there and nobody even pay attention to them. Pretty high number. 1/3 just get nothing. And nobody knows, even these successful ICOs, will they return of investment or not. That's side story. People are usually using word cryptocurrency, blockchain, scam, like simple like that. Actually not. We should also understand that each startup, it's a risky. It is something risky, very risky in a certain way. So hoping that because it's IT, hence everything should succeed as Facebook did, no. Investing in IT, in software companies, is not safe investment. Let's call some safe investment. Oil, gold, gold mine, and probably that's all about. Especially in IT, yes, there is a risk, even if it's not scam. People are trying and cannot.
Well, especially in the blockchain industry, everything is experimental. That's a new thing, so no one really knows how and where you can use the blockchain and what makes sense. Just companies experiment in different spheres. They try to implement it on the supply chain or healthcare or
like
dating, I don't know. So yeah, of course the risks are higher, but maybe the returns are also higher.
returns probably is higher. Yeah, everybody remember that dude that sold his shares of Amazon, and it's about hundreds of billions now. That happened. He need money that time. What can you say?
So the next step in the evolution of the fundraising on the blockchain is the IEO, or initial exchange offerings. So basically what they were trying, which problem they were trying to solve, is like to weed out the scams. And what the difference, well, like what's the IEO, or initial exchange offering, is basically an ICO that's held or run on a centralized exchange platform. And the idea behind that there is a dedicated team that investigates the project, does the due diligence and background checks, and the exchange itself, it puts their own name on the line, so they don't want to participate in any sorts of scammy projects. And sometimes there are examples when exchanges half the way through they decided not to run the
Absolutely.
IEO.
And if you are touching IEO, let's mention this. Some exchanges I mean settled exchange like Bittrex, might point the coin or token for free. So they're not asking for money upfront. However, they do like indeed due diligence on checking everything. Again, as it was mentioned a couple of minutes ago, it's a IT startup. It might fail, even if everybody trying their best to achieve. Now, Bittrex do it for free. Other platforms, not so free. And dear audience, if you want to run IEO, keep in mind that average price is 3 Bitcoin. Just to start, just to get your token on exchange. Marketing is not included. Anybody wants? No.
I'm not sure, but like you're probably talking about the LA or
Yes.
LA token
Those
or
guys.
LA token. Yeah, so there are exchanges that actually specialize on just listing your coins, and I prefer actually I trust more like Binance, for example. They don't make a lot of money out of this IEOs. They have like a handful of IEOs this year.
But they are verified.
Yeah, so
But you can trust this token as much as you can trust Binance. But still, it's very much more trustful source. Why not to mention this? So far we are talking about put your money and get 1,000 return, cool return, big money. What if we do step back and recall that this is IT space, this is new technology, and probably you want to invest not because you're in a bad greed statement, but you are like supporting new stuff. You just, of course, money is still there, but first of all, you are investing in a project because it's a cool project itself. Why not? So it's not all about money, it's also about building something new that might return a lot, probably not tomorrow, but the day after. Not only money-wise, but technology-wise. So right now, here's my phone, and I truly remember the time when phone was that big. You can kill the person with that phone if you want. And the only thing that this device can do is call and get SMS. Call and get SMS. Now we have so much power in our hands. It couldn't be there without innovation. And probably some people should think about not only get money, but support innovations. That's my point of view.
well, and in these terms, if you want to support a project, usually I think you would contact the team directly and
Absolutely.
go like the private investment route. ICOs, they are more like crowdfunding, so you can the benefit or of the ICO is that you can reach any person anywhere in the world, and they can invest as little as.
Point.
There's no limitation,
Leverage
probably, unless you
crowd.
put a limitation on that, and it's easy to manage on the blockchain, and it's sort of trustless. So
Should we though give some suggestion to our listeners? Usually, all these projects has not 100%, but usually code available on GitHub or any other platform like that. So if you are good enough either on anything related to crypto project, you might want to check the code. If you are strong in the software development, you might want to check their papers if you are strong from a legal perspective.
So yeah, this is basically where IEOs come in, because
Not
you
everybody
can't
can.
be a professional or an expert in all these fields. So that's where the exchanges, they bring the team who understands the code on GitHub, who understand the legal part of the business and so on. They do the due diligence, and then they list the token. So basically where the breakthrough in this way of raising funds in comparison to traditional ways, that there is no limitation from who can invest in your company and how. So if you go through the IPO route, first of all, you can only target the accredited investors.
Yep.
That's a very limited offer. Plus, usually within one jurisdiction, you're probably limited. Like if you're in the United States, that's probably the only country. But right now with the ICO, you can be anyone in Africa. You can start raising money from people all over Asia and small remote.
Or let's rephrase it. Not you can raise money, but the person who would never able to participate in a good, strong project with a good return can participate in that. So the only thing that you need to have is internet connection and some device. And here you go. Invest your money in cool startups, why not? Or in established company that just start run a new venue of their business. It enables not only to get money, but also enables billions of people to participate and why not get the return? Both ways.
And also another the side effect or positive side effect of this approach is the building of the community that supports your project. So with the IPO, you don't really know your investors.
Yeah.
They might not even be interested in, like, let's say Uber that went on IPO like a couple of months ago. But when you are doing this on the blockchain, so people get acquainted with your project and they might be interested and they might be promoting your project, sharing with
Another good
peers.
phenomenon that I noticed, usually there is no way that you sitting in front of your laptop can directly contact with CEO of General Motors. Almost never. Or its representative. Almost never. In all these projects, it's very much more close to a public. The person who tweet something in the Twitter, usually it's CEO itself. And you can direct a question to that person, probably without response. True. But it's very much more close to a, let's call it, average person than it used to be like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So it's a big step. Yes, it's a very big step for mankind and for financial institutions that now they need to, in a certain way, achieve same.
Yeah, so because of that, the investors and the potential clients of the company and the development team, they are sort of closer to each other, so they communicate much more, like much easier and efficient and faster. So, which the traditional companies don't really do. So just a question: do you guys know, like, what are the largest ICOs that happened? Any of you?
Then name it. Just try.
Or whatever's in your mind.
Disclaimer: no
There are a
Ethereum.
lot. I think the largest would probably be EOS or Hashgraph, also Telegram. There are a few of them.
Yeah. So yeah, I checked that. That's the EOS is the largest. They raised 4.2 billion. And if you compare the return based on an average ICO price, so they are down 4%. So you lose a little bit of money. The second one is the Telegram, 1.7 billion. But those guys, they went the private route, so they
One institution.
I don't think they disclosed actually who participated in the ICO, but yeah. So
Not for mortals.
yeah, it wasn't for everyone, so which is also possible. So the coin is not listed, so the return on investment is not known yet. So the Telegram is about to launch the cryptocurrency and the blockchain in, I think, September. This is something like that. At least the beta version. But
Let's mark something else about ICO and IEO. If you want to participate in ICO, You need to have a wallet. Wallet for that particular coin. Nobody says it's difficult. Usually, in advanced projects, they have even binary to just download and get it. Or if it's in Ethereum, you can easily create and get that coins into your wallet. If, let's say, you use MetaMask or something. If you are talking IPO, and you need to not only list on the exchange, but if you want to buy, here you go. KYC comes place right away with a big hug.
Yeah, but usually, like the most ICOs, they were done on Ethereum blockchain. So, and even if the company plans to build their own blockchain with the different tokens, usually you would get a temporary ERC20 or Ethereum-based token in your wallet. So, having a wallet, I don't think that's a problem. If you know what ICO is, so I guess you have some knowledge to understand what a wallet is.
Yes.
I don't think that was the biggest problem, but yeah, let's go through all of this. As we saw, the ICO market is down 97% in the first quarter of this year, in comparison to the first quarter of 2019. So, and IEOs in the first 4 months of this year, they raised $40 million. This is according to the BitMEX reports. They actually do good research and they have good reports on different sides of the blockchain crypto on their blog. Well, that's another interesting thing, that during the ICOs, the companies would aim to sell most of their tokens. Like 60,
I have a comment
they
here.
would reserve like about 20-30% for the team or something like that. In initial exchange offerings, the companies on average sell 4.4% of the entire token supply, and that's why they can profit by selling their own tokens in the future. And so in the first 4 months, the companies raised $40 million, but based on the capitalization, based on the tokens that they hold, the capitalizations of all these projects is close to 1 billion. It's like $907 million.
Are those numbers huge? People all around here in studio and online. Is 1 billion a huge number if you are talking about capitalization? What do you think? I can answer it, but it's a question for you. This market is indeed small. As soon as we compare crypto, everything together against any other traditional market, it's incompatible, simply. The size differs as much that 1 billion, you truly understand 1 billion, it's not a huge number. Numbers in the financial world is way much bigger. So even from that perspective, there are so much research to do to get somewhere compared to traditional stuff.
Well, yes, crypto is a tiny market relatively, and I think, well, it's better to look at the $40 million, because even though they have the tokens, doesn't mean they are able to sell them. It's just like, we create 1 million tokens, we sell one for $1, doesn't mean we have like $1 million capitalization, because no one might buy. Or if you start selling, the price might drop significantly.
Which is expected behavior.
Okay, so, and a few examples of the platforms that run the IEOs and the exchanges, basically. So the Binance is the largest one with
Those are
16,
millions,
17.
just to know.
Yeah, these are the numbers of IEOs, like the projects. Oh no, that's the funds
That's
raised,
millions.
actually. Sorry.
That's
Yeah,
millions.
that's millions. Yeah. So Binance raised the most is around 16, something like that. Then Huobi, Bittrex, KuCoin, OKX.
Yeah, They are like,
and
This is-
bitmax. And so this report was from May of this year, and I've noticed like more and more exchanges they're jumping on this train of the IEO, because it's a good way for them to just
Absolutely.
make profit.
absolutely.
So, and the last thing probably you've guys heard a lot is the security token offering. That happened when the ICOs were not compliant with any regulations, and people were losing money. The authorities were freaking out. The SEC, Security Commission, in the States were trying to sue and shut down a lot of the projects. They were going from one to another and just trying to bring a little bit of order in the space. So, and then we came up to the security token offering. So this security token represents an investment contract into an underlying investment asset, such as stocks, bonds, funds, and the real estate sometimes.
Being here, yeah.
So basically, it's a security. The only difference is that instead of the information about the token or a share being written on paper and then stored somewhere in a repository or, I don't know, a safe, right now all this information is stored on the blockchain. However, because you need to comply with all the regulations, it's pretty much the IPO, so it's much more costly. Maybe not as $4 million as the traditional IPO, but I
Still
believe that
something.
$4 million the IPO is for larger companies. So if you're smaller, maybe you can go a
Drop
little
it.
lower. But anyway, so a few platforms arise from this need for the regulated token, and one of them is from Toronto, the Polymath. I think maybe they were even the first company that actually created the platform for specifically for security tokens, where you obviously need to KYC everyone, you need to restrict all the addresses, and if you look at this from the blockchain point of view, where it's borderless, it's censorship-resistant, it's global, well, it's nothing like that. So I don't really know why they just don't keep the centralized database and
Because it's tradition.
tradition of the blockchain. Which is-
Tradition of something that people call security. What's good about that? Here in Canada, Canada is happy with STOs. One thing only, don't forget to pay your taxes. Since 2018, it is close to completely legal. However, tax accept that, CRA accepts that. You pay on whatever gain you got. So manipulation with security tokens are okay for Canadians, and of course
What do you mean by
taxes.
manipulation?
You can buy it, you can sell it, you can do everything. Don't forget to report the gain or loss that you got. Report and pay. Tax and what else? No, only tax. Tax comes anytime. And then you are set from a perspective of CRA legal issues. Be honest player and get your money. Why not?
So yeah, like a few bullet points. It complies with securities laws, the security token offering. The benefit is it's more liquid than the IPO because it's on the blockchain. It's easier to move tokens. There's no fees for brokers. That's this 4 to 7% of underwriting fees that I mentioned during the IPO. Apparently, you can cut the middleman, cut the costs. That's what
It's big,
what
big advance.
that is what we were promised by the blockchain, cutting out all the middlemen. But also, it's less accessible than the ICO because of the KYC, because of the compliance and all the regulations. Obviously, not everyone is able to participate. You have to be an accredited investor, for example.
Let's just open another abbreviation. KYC, know your customer. Who should know your customer? Whoever provides STO or ICO or whatsoever. So make sure that whenever, it's actually a very good point from perspective of government. If each company going through KYC and anti-money laundering process, it's actually naturally incorporated with any compliance that being set here in Canada. Hence, everybody who would like to participate also set and covered from that perspective. Why I'm returning to that point over and over again. If you are not only focusing about how much money you might get, but also you think what your responsibilities against the country you are resident of, lots of things being changed right away. We are not talking about USA with restrictions and everything around. You might think twice in participating in ICO which comes from the country that Canada not happy to doing business with. And KYC is there. So there are more things to think about prior to just jump and be happy investor.
Do you know of any STOs that's actually live and real projects?
I guess I know one.
Do you guys know of any real STOs that actually live and?
Yes, we are doing one right now. You met some of the people from Ecuador.
Yeah, but it's not live. You're just planning to implement this stuff. But I mean, anything that a company that launched their STO and you can actually buy their tokens. I know for sure there's the Blockstack, which I am an ambassador or like evangelist.
Yeah, Blockstack is doing 5 of them, including ours. But I don't think there's one that exists yet.
No, Blockstack is not Blockstation. Blockstation is the exchange that launched the STOs, but Blockstack is the company.
Yeah,
so
Blockstation. Sorry, all these
Blockstack-
block names.
Yeah, Blockstack, they launched their STO that's completely regulated and compliant in the United States. So, yeah, so they have their token. I don't really know the details for now, but I know it's working. But I was just curious if you guys know of any STO that's out there. Because Blockstack is actually a huge project, and they have a lot of like high-profile investors. So
Yeah,
they can go this route. They can spend a few million on the lawyers to be completely compliant. Yeah, and I wanted to mention the how we test. So when people, during the ICO, everyone was talking about how we test and what it's all about, because during the ICOs, everyone was arguing what's a security and if the token on the ICO token is a security or not security. So, and the how we test is something that from 100 years ago. So basically that says that the security on an investment contract is an investment of first investment of money, second in a common enterprise with the reasonable expectations of profits, and this profit should be derived from the entrepreneurial or managerial efforts of others. So just wanted to add it here.
You know what might people ask us? Why even ICOs came up front? Why each platform suddenly decided to go with its own token? Ask yourself first, and there are like answers. And here's one of those. We are an early stage. Platform comes with its own features. We are talking about code base. Each project has its own features and specifics, so that particular token that's running in that platform, it's an utility token from a certain way, but if it's a gateway to that particular platform, it has to be different from anything else. Now, in that 2017, so many good ideas comes up, and each of those, again, because we are very early stage, was like, okay, let's reinvent the wheel. Each time reinvent the wheel, put something new in that wheel, and here we go. This crazy amount of cryptocurrencies. So right now, end of August 2019, we can say that there is no absolute cool solution of cryptocurrency. With one exception, if you are talking about financial transfer, money transfer, Bitcoin stays there pretty strong. Out of that, still, tokenization is, as a concept, is here and needs brain power to evolve.
Well, why every platform decided to have their own tokens? It doesn't necessarily the requirement for a platform to have a token. Well, actually, if you're building your own blockchain, you need a token to incentivize, the node operators or the miners. But not every project has to be a blockchain in itself.
Absolutely.
So, but basically, ICO is just fundraising for your startup. And you need a token for that thing in order to give something to people who give you money. I noticed that there was an interesting ICO for beehives. So the guys, and I think it was Romania, they raised and they didn't raise a lot of money. That was a couple $100,000. This is what they needed actually. And if you invested in the ICO, they would create a beehive somewhere in the mountains, and they would send you honey as long as you keep your token.
Absolute beautiful idea.
Yeah, and one of the last slides, it's comparison of the ICO, IEO, and STOs in terms of difficulty to set up, for example. So for the ICO, it's easy. You just copy a smart contract, and you're good to go.
You copy and you change something. Please don't forget to change something.
Well, maybe the name. IEO is medium difficulty because not only you have to do the smart contract, but you also have to negotiate with an exchange and you go some background checks. And the STO is the hardest one because you have to be compliant with everything. So it's close to the IPO in terms of complexity. Fundraising cost for the ICO is low. We're not talking about marketing, but you need marketing through everything. IEO is medium, as you also incur some expenses for the listing of your token on an exchange. And the STO obviously is the highest because you need to hire a bunch of lawyers. Investor protection, the ICO, you have zero protection almost. In IEO,
as much as exchange has.
Yeah, exchange has the name, they want to protect it. I know Binance did a lot of great stuff. They refunded investors in the past due to regulation change in China, so that happened. And so the STO, obviously, it's the highest because everything's regulated. It's not really a blockchain in the way as it was born, so, and not the spirit of the blockchain. Investor accessibility, so ICO, everyone can participate. Don't need anything. IEO, you have already limitations because investors should go through the KYC process at the very least. And STO, obviously, you need to go through KYC. You have to be an accredited investor, and so on and so forth. So it's the highest one. Regulation level, obviously, ICO, there's no regulation. IEO, it's medium regulation because Binance is trying to maneuver between different jurisdictions and tries to stay the least regulated possible. However, they still have their own rules. They still have sometimes KYC and so on. And obviously, the regulation level for the STO is the highest. Governance level, loose during the ICO. If you buy a token, you have zero influence most of the time.
With certain extent, yes.
Most of the time. So sometimes there are like tokens and projects that give you the right to govern. Like usually it's if it's involved DAO, decentralized
Yes.
autonomous organizations, which MakerDAO, for example, is one of those ICOs.
There is one good tradition since 2017 to put in a smart contract of ICOs following logic. If there is sell less than certain amount, contract at certain time triggers automatically and refund everything.
That's called a soft cap.
Yes, there are more, let's call it features like that that can be embedded in smart contracts which represent a token on ICO. And as we talked before, who's gonna check all the code base over and over again? How many people has that knowledge? Not too much.
And the liquidity level. So in ICO, it's medium. Obviously, the highest liquidity is in IEO because your token is already listed on an exchange. During the ICOs, everyone was promising that,
We're gonna get there.
in a couple of months, or like, yeah, we're planning to list our token on exchange, starting from some weird, unknown exchanges. And it's really difficult to list a token on a high-profile exchange like Binance. And if you already start from there, you have the highest liquidity, obviously. So the ICO is a medium liquidity because you need to figure out where you're gonna trade. Usually it's decentralized exchange. And the STO is the lowest liquidity. It's the one platform. You cannot transfer tokens between different platforms. You have to go through whitelisting. You cannot even send your token to any address, so that address has to go through KYC process, has to be whitelisted, and only then you can. It improves on liquidity in comparison to the IPO, traditional fundraising.
But still.
Yeah, it's still quite low. And as usual, reminder, not related to ICO, but for any crypto assets that you hold, always back up your seed phrase when you open your wallet. Just remember that seed phrase is the only way you can recover your funds if you lose your wallet, if you break your phone. But also remember that anyone who has the seed phrase can access and steal your funds, so keep it in a safe place. Never keep your coins on an exchange, even if it's an IEO, so makes sense to move it.
Keep trade on exchange. Don't keep.
Let's say don't keep your coins on an exchange longer than it's necessary. So. Well, that's about it for today. So you guys, any questions, any comments?
I just can say something. I feel that this short time of when we talk, we are actually even scratching the stuff. We are not going deep. And about each point that we touched today, we can spend another hour to just describe it in details. And this is something new not only for people around here, but it's new steps in financial system of world. Hence, lots of white space that we need to fill. And probably people can ask you, to some explanations if they want.
Yeah, so if you're planning to run your own ICO fundraising on the blockchain, just talk to us, call me, message me.
Now, yeah, we are done with our presentation. However, people here in studio, people there online, why ever would you like to participate in something related to worth crypto coin? And I'm asking you, and I would love to hear your answer. Who's gonna answer? Nobody. Okay, so online, just leave your comments, and well, why not? We're gonna answer that questions as well. Should we thank them?
We actually have a question from our online viewers.
Oh,
So which countries are still good for launching an ICO? Is Canada okay? Singapore, Switzerland, Gibraltar?
which country? Canada. It's an extremely good balance between government involvement and still cyberpunk movement that we have. We are protected from, here in Canada, we are protected from lots of, let's call it obvious scam. Still we need to pay our taxes, but I guess it's worth it. People are mentioning Singapore or any other offshore. Offshore is good just because it's offshore. What next? So Switzerland, the name itself.
Well, obviously, the Switzerland has the best regulation, the best in terms of it encompasses a lot of sides of the crypto sphere, and then they started first there. Singapore has also pretty good regulation field, so the regulation doesn't mean that it's very friendly regulation. It just means that there's no uncertainty. You know that there's a law, or like in Canada, I don't think we have the regulations in place, like fully in place right now, which means, as Ralph mentioned, you can launch your own ICO, you can raise money, and then all of a sudden you are not compliant with new regulation, and you have to redo all the things, and you need to pay the lawyers, whatnot. So it's difficult to say right now because the space is changing. So which is the best jurisdictions? It also depends, I guess, on your business, on what you're trying to do. If like BISC, for example, a decentralized exchange, it's completely decentralized, so they don't even have jurisdiction at all. So that's the thing. That's because the blockchain and ICO is just internet. There's no jurisdictions. You can't ban Bitcoin in one country. It's still gonna exist everywhere.
There are countries that I might suggest from this kind of activity. One of the new countries that came, two new countries that came in place, it's Georgia and Armenia. Just keep in mind, starting business there, certain countries require your physical presence. So,
Well, Belarus, for example.
yep.
Like 2 years ago, they announced that we are super friendly. You can launch any blockchain or crypto project then. But the question is it
How long it served?
what's the uncertainty, or what are the political risks? The political risks are higher. So even if you're in a crypto space and you're not going to touch the fiat or banking system, then you can launch your ICO from anywhere. You technically don't physically exist.
But if you want to
It
touch
all-
banking,
It all depends on the project.
questions.
Right, so
Other thing, when you choose country, as you mentioned, in this business, if you are saying, hey, I'm in a country, whatever, and I'm trying to do business related to some assets of that country, people might be surprised how you get, for example, oil in Singapore. It's just an example. So everything should be logic. Business, country where you launch your ICO, white paper, marketing, everything must come together and not just I want ICO and done. No. I hope that answers question online.
Guys, any questions, comments? Boris, I know you're a fan of IEOs. What do you think? Is it good? Is it bad? What's your favorite?
My favorite, I think it's all over.
Okay.
No, but I'm good.
Okay, so the interesting part about the IEOs, they're so popular that the Binance, for example, I read about them. So they have a lottery. First of all, in order to participate in the IEO, you have to hold the Binance tokens. Like, I think it's 50 or something like that. You have to have them. Then, even if you have them, it doesn't guarantee that you can participate in the token sale initial. So they have a lottery for that stuff. The more tokens the Binance tokens you hold, the higher the chances that you are able to participate. And they sell out, and then if you win a lottery, you have the right to buy those tokens, and usually they sell out those tokens like in seconds.
Yep. With them.
But also, I checked the stats, and out of most the initial exchange offerings, at least on the top exchanges, not some smaller random exchanges, you would get return on investment. So I think only one token that's dipped below the initial price, but all the other tokens, sometimes they have 2, 3, 4x. Yeah, can you grab the mic?
I was just thinking of, in terms of KYC, other than ICO, pretty much every others, do you need to have KYC? And if so, like how much of a KYC do you need? Like, is it just the IP address of where it is coming from, or?
What is KYC? Know your customer. If it's Canadian exchange, it must comply with KYC that been given, regulations that been given by Canadian government. Usually, it's a full identification of client involved. First, last name, date of birth, ID. Usually, ID has to be either, if it's Canadian. However, if it's not Canada and the country is not in a certain connection with Canada, it must be notarized. Notary public.
Yeah,
Certified.
The thing with KYC is blockchain is like internet. It's everywhere, and like KYC in one country is not sufficient for KYC in another country, and for Binance or those exchanges, the Binance is known, they switch offices, so they were in China, I think, or Hong Kong, then they moved to Tokyo when the Tokyo was pressing them just to go through the licensing process. Then they moved their office to Malta. But then again, what does it even mean to move their office? It's just like the post address, because they're completely distributed. So their servers are all over, their team is completely distributed. So they don't really exist like in one physical place as a company. And for them, I think they collect KYC. I didn't participate in any of IEO, so I don't really know what exactly they collect, but I assume because they're not in any particular jurisdiction, so they try to protect themselves and not let really bad actors into the crypto space.
Speaking that, for average honest person in the world, speaking truly, there is no any good reason to avoid KYC. I will say even more. If somebody would like to get in a certain exchange and do there some financial stuff, and that exchange doesn't require any KYC, okay, question to ask, how long, and it's not decentralized, it's like centralized exchange, how long that the exchange might live? Probably they just want to operate for a year, then close the door and disappear with your money.
Well, I have a reason why you don't want to do the KYC,
No.
because it can get hacked and can get leaked, and then all of a
Yes.
sudden your KYC, well, your identification is out there, and people can start using it, opening accounts
Here
on
and there,
different
here and there.
exchanges and so on. So, identity theft.
That's the biggest concern, I would say. If we just from other points of view, okay, you go in a bank, you show your bank card, you show your ID, right? You are doing that KYC each and every time possible.
So, and then if your identity is leaked somewhere, someone can get your ID, and then they can do the SIM swap. Just know your number, go to the operator, the
No.
phone provider, swap your SIM, get access to your phone, get access to your email, recover your exchange account and the password,
Here we
and
go.
steal the money. So this is actually a problem of
It's not that some established corporation know your first name and last name.
and even the companies that actually should specialize on the cybersecurity,
Oh, that's awful.
they're all over the place. So like we see this examples everywhere. Like Equifax was the biggest one, company that collects. Well, basically their only job is to provide
To collect
cybersecurity
and
for
keep-
the information that they collect, and
And they fail.
they were hacked.
They fail miserably. Facebook, nice Facebook that used to keep plain text passwords. Yeah, it's not KYC, it's not your identity. Believe me, in the Facebook, average person has as much information that the whole life can be recovered. So, I guess we had a good talk tonight.
Yeah, it was a nice chat. So I guess we're gonna let me check if we have more questions. No, so I guess we're gonna wrap up for the day. However, we're still hanging out here, like in an unofficial part of our meetup.
Just gonna start.
Maybe there's still pizza left. So if you wanna talk with me, you're welcome. But I guess that's it for tonight, and thanks for watching. See you all next Tuesday.